Standing up in McKinney, this is According to Callus. It is episode 646, coming to you on the last day of May, the 31st of May, the year of our Lord, 2024. Hat tip over to the guys at Hagman Report for that date set up there. Let me just tell you, folks, it's been a week. It's been 2 weeks of winning. I cautioned everybody yesterday, just because we won doesn't mean it's over. Don't turn it off. Don't ignore it. AKA, don't give up the ship. But you need to all take a breath. There is a refreshing wave coming upon us. Take your break, enjoy it, and be prepared. Okay, today's episode is going to be about unrestricted lawfare. Before I get into that, I'm going to take a moment and remind you the biggest way that you can help me continue to grow the show, overcome the algorithms which have been brutal, to make our voices heard, to continue to make a difference, to strike for the restoration of the Republic, right? To hold the line, to hold fast, to don't get bullied. I don't know how else to say it. It's just this simple. Like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. It's as simple as that. Join me on your social media of choice. The subscription to your podcast can be your podcatcher of choice. I'm at Podbean right now. They host. And I got to tell you, I'm a little frustrated with them. This algorithm nonsense is kicking my tail. But you know what? You can get me at Spotify. You can get me at the Google Play. You can get me at Apple iTunes. I'm at all the major distributors. I also am currently still available at YouTube in audio form because I don't make videos generally. That may be changing. We'll see. And the social media of choice. I have a page. I have a group over at Facebook. I'm a pro at Gab. And guess what? I'm at MeWe as well. And you know what? I got to say, the stuff shows up at Instagram, but I have not figured out how to do that right. Hopefully, we'll get that fixed in the near future. But we're now approximately 6 months into the 2024, and a whole lot of things that I had planned on doing, they just keep changing. I've had a unique opportunity that looks to be right around the corner that I must take advantage of. And it will change the character of this show to a degree, depending on how that plays out. But it will be a good thing. It will be a net positive, both for myself and I believe Collin County as a whole. So we'll see how that works out. And I wish I could tell you I was auditioning for a radio program, but as of yet, strangely, that has not yet been an opportunity presented. So now that I've done that diversionary introduction, let's jump into the Unrestricted Lawfare episode. Okay, so for those of you that have been following along here, you know that the Donald, a.k.a. Donald John Trump, the 45th president of the United States, I've always been honest, not a huge fan. He was the only choice we had in 2016, the only choice we had in 2020, and once again, he is the only choice we have in 2024. Now, to be honest, I would have preferred Rand Paul in any of those mixes. I probably would have been better with Ted Cruz, but there's a caveat there that I'm not going to go into right now. Vivek Ramaswamy, notwithstanding certain issues around him, probably would have been an interesting vice presidential ad. But of course, at this point, we don't even know who our vice presidential ad is going to be, but we wait. But oddly enough, it seems that Mr. Trump has now been found guilty on 34 felony counts in the state of New York by a corrupt judge, by a corrupt prosecutor, And when I say corrupt, I feel confident because the guy in any other way, shape, or form would have been excluded. He would have recused himself. He would have stayed out of it because he had no business. He's compromised. And if that's not the definition of corrupt, I don't know what is. And then, of course, the prosecutor, I mean, the guy played fast and loose with the rules. He's abused everything. Who cares? It's a joke. It was a show trial. It was a political trial. And they handpicked their jurors that were going to find him guilty pretty much no matter what was presented. Now, to be clear, I'm certain at some point in the past, Donald Trump probably was with somebody that wasn't his wife. In fact, I'll say with some level of certainty that happened. And I'm sure there was an NDA and somebody was paid to keep their mouth shut. Now, I don't think that's good. I don't defend that. I don't think that's appropriate. But honestly, that's between him and his wife and whatever lawyers were involved. And the money shenanigans that were alleged were the basis of this. Oh, come on. Really? Really? Do you really think a billionaire does that stuff himself? Do you really think a multi-hundred millionaire does that stuff by himself? No, he has attorneys that handle that stuff. And do you really think those attorneys made those stupid mistakes? No. But again, here we are. Nobody's really concerned about the truth. Nobody really wants justice. They just want to railroad this guy. And they found a way to make it happen. Now, granted, I'm 90% or more confident that all this crap, and that's what it is going to be dismissed upon appeal. In fact, in a perfect world, in a just world, the judge and the prosecutor will be taken off in cuffs. Now, I'm not going to hold my breath because I know we don't live in a just world. Certainly, New York is far from a just world, but the best I can hope for is the guy's going to be exonerated by appeal. Nevertheless, they got what they wanted. Strangely enough, the Donald had his biggest fundraising event ever courtesy of the guilty verdict. The false, fraudulent, crazy verdict. But here we are. Nobody believes that this is justice, but here we are. The unrestricted lawfare. Now, let's pivot, right? And we'll bring it a little closer to home here in Texas. And again, in the instance of this, there were some investment details that were done. And look, I know there's more to it, but this is the one that's been hanging over A.G. Paxton's head for the longest time now, where there were some referrals and the paperwork wasn't filled out properly. And the guy went and paid the fine and, basically said, sorry, that was a mistake. My guys didn't do their work. And that should have been the end with it. But some political people that have an axe to grind blew it up into something that it was not. And for the record, just like I think Donald probably did something wrong somewhere along the line, just like I believe that to be the case, I'm likely to say, yeah, I'm sure maybe A.G. Ken Paxton probably did something wrong. I don't know what the details are. Quite frankly, I don't care what the details are. The guy went and basically paid his fine, and it should have been the end of it. But no, not with unrestricted lawfare. No, we're going to draw it out for a number of years, and we're going to abuse it and hold it over his head. But you know what? The strange thing happened. He continued to win every race he was in. Massive re-election success. And when that confronted these same people that were upset that here's a guy that we don't like doing things that we don't want him to do. I mean, you can say he was the best AG in the entire country, and I wouldn't argue with you. But let's face it, when you have an abusive, overbearing, overextended federal government, if you're a state attorney general, if you're not suing the federal government, you're clearly not doing your job. So I can say, yes, kudos. The man's done his job, done it in spades, and has made a career off suing the federal government. And I'm very happy that he's doing that, by the way. But once again, does the punishment fit the crime? So we dreamed up some scenario here to whereupon some individuals on the Texas House decide to impeach the guy. Why? Well, because we think he did something wrong. They didn't listen to both sides. They don't actually know what happened. They've just heard a good story. I highly doubt it was the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. But hey, it was enough to kick it over to the Senate. Now we've embarrassed the guy, thrown him out of office, cost him a bunch of money. And these ostensibly were the good guys, right? Other Republicans doing this. See, unrestricted lawfare isn't only done by raving lunatic Democrats or leftist progressive socialists. No, it's done by both sides. It's about control and power, and how can we possibly push down and manipulate those that don't do what we want them to do and force their hand and make them toe the line. This is what's playing out. This unrestricted lawfare comes in many shades, but here in Texas, we've seen it play out. Now, fortunately, it didn't work out for them. Fortunately, they didn't get the outcome they were looking for. Fortunately, the guy fought the good fight and came through. So as a result, some form of justice was found when it went to the Senate. And the sham show trial impeachment was overturned. Just like I believe the Donalds' convictions will be overturned upon appeal. But again, the punishment wasn't the punishment. The punishment was the process. Keeping in mind, these are supposedly good Republicans that went and did this. Now, again, I don't know what they saw. I don't know what's real. And at this point, based upon the outcome, I kind of don't even care. Most of this was old news. Most of this we already at least heard in part. Now, again, I'm not going to say the guy is a saint. I'm not going to comment on whatever infidelity may or may not have occurred. I have no comment on that because, quite frankly, once again, that's between him and his wife. I mean, that's what we've been told, at least since, well, certainly Kennedy, but more closer, the Clinton debacle, right? Well, if his wife forgives him, then it's all okay. Well, no, not really. It's kind of messy. It's kind of dirty. But guess what? It doesn't really affect the job they're doing. It doesn't really affect the outcome. If the voters know about this and don't care, it's a dead deal. And the so-called business dealings that were so problematic, had Byron Cook get the outcome that he was looking for, he probably would have never said a word. Paperwork snafus are a problem, yes. And they have consequences, yes. Unless, of course, you're connected to the Biden family or the Clinton family. Right? Then nothing else matters. You can get away with literal murder in the Clinton family, but hey, don't worry about it. It's going to all be okay. Unrestricted lawfare tore that guy up for years and years and years, but now maybe he's been successful. Maybe that's past him. I'd like to believe that's the case. Certainly the statute of limitations or double jeopardy must kick in at some point. But strangely enough, that didn't matter for Donald J. Trump. Because it's unrestricted lawfare. We recognize no boundaries. We recognize no really right and wrong. It's all about retribution. And speaking of retribution, I don't know, depending on what the count is, there's between 15 and 20 new Texas House reps. In large part thanks to the retribution tour put out by the AG. Now, regardless what you think about the AG, regardless what you think about his guilt or innocence, those were real consequences. If you're a Texas House rep and you lost your seat based upon, quite frankly, pissing off the wrong guy, I mean, what did we learn here? Well, look, there's other things at play here. This is really a throwdown between Speaker Phelan, right, and his dirty deeds as he sells out the Republican-controlled Texas House to his Democrat lackeys. And he managed to limp through to re-election based upon the strength of, well, people that came and voted in the Republican primary that had absolutely no business voting in the Republican primary. But that's a different story. The fact that he was under such heavy scrutiny prevented him from being able to fund all the other House members that lost. I call that a net positive, a net win, right? But the unrestricted lawfare doesn't stop there. No. See, because not only that, our newly elected county chair right here in Collin County, he's being hit by lawfare as well. No, it wasn't enough that the Democrats tried to take out the president when he was a sitting president by 2 false impeachments. Then they went after him after he was a former president because, God forbid, we can't allow him to run for president ever again. Breaking tradition, whereupon you don't go after the president once he's a former president because we don't want that chaos. No. And then transitioning that into Texas, now we have what I would call bad Republicans in cahoots with leftist, progressive, socialist Democrats working together to take out the AG. Now, again, you can argue the legitimacy of the charges if you want, but the fact of the matter is they were a moot point once he was reelected, but nobody seems to care because it's unrestricted lawfare. And then you transition that to Collin County. We're talking about a seat as the Collin County Republican Party chairman that pays nothing. It's essentially become a full-time job that you donate your time, your money, and your effort in order to fulfill it. It's a volunteer role that, depending on how you do it and how well you do it, can be anywhere from 25 to 90 hours in a week, as exemplified by our former chairman, Abraham George. Now, that being said, I don't know all the details. I'm getting this secondhand, so anything I say is, to the best of my ability, accurate, but it's hearsay, admittedly hearsay. But when you have a guy talking to the person that came in second place and he says, hey, look, I'm going to potentially be the next unpaid chairman of the party. I'm wanting to work together to move forward. How about I make you the unpaid vice chair of the party? And when I say make, I'm really only nominating you because I have no power nor authority to appoint you to that position. It has to be approved by the executive committee. So I'm only going to make a suggestion that happens for the purpose of unity. Now, you can question whether or not it was smart to say that out loud or it was a good idea to say that in a public meeting. I would think that most people would hear that and say, oh man, that's great. The guy's trying to make peace and move on. No. Can't have that. The unrestricted lawfare also includes certain grassroots individuals that have fascinations with somebody's back door. But no, we're going to make complaints about this. We're going to claim that he's not going to be able to take his oath of office because now he's offered somebody something of value. Now, that's a very strange reading of, well, quite frankly, anything. But you could make an argument. But you can only make that argument if you close one eye, you squint real good, and, oh, by the way, you got your head turned on a 90-degree angle. Of what value is being exchanged here? Of what threat of coercion has been done here? Hey, look, we can avoid spending the next 2 months on a runoff if we'll just agree to work together and move forward. And nobody thought anything of that because the same offer was put back in reverse. Again, to me, in my ears, I hear somebody just trying to be cautious, honorable, above board and say, hey, look, rather than spend the time and money and effort to run this runoff, why don't we just agree to work together and move on? Now, most logical, straight-thinking people would say, hey, yeah, that's a good idea. Why didn't you take it? But no, that's not what we have. No. We have a group of people that would rather sick the office of the investigator general, ooh, or the DA's office, ooh, or the attorney general's office. I mean, really? I mean, what point is there to have any honor or offer any dignity or try and cut deals to where we can move forward and not waste a bunch of time and money to do a thankless job for no money? It's enough for me to wonder, why would anybody want that job? Well, I could tell you why they want that job. The same people that have witnessed the unrestricted lawfare taking place on the president taking place on the Attorney General have decided, because they didn't get their way and they're not willing to take their ball and go home, that no, they're going to ruin somebody else's life. They're going to destroy that person if they can. Why? Because they want to control the party. Now, the sad thing is, based upon what I've seen, these folks, if they were to successfully take over the party, would promptly run it into the ground. Between the circle... boy, I want to be careful here. The ever-expanding purity test, the demand for complete obedience, and, quite frankly, poor management skills, it would have been run into the ground. We can't allow that. Now, look, I'm just one guy. There's 100 plus executive committee members, right? Precinct chairs. And they're looking at what's going on here, and they're like, what in the world? Hey, but don't worry, we've got a couple of people down in Plano there that, for lack of a better understanding of what's best for the party, no, we're going to lose our stuff over this because, God forbid, somebody that was potentially picked to be an adequate successor by somebody that was in a position to know better than them. We can't have this. How dare him? How dare him show honor or respect or try and cut a deal so that we can move on? No, we can't do this. We must destroy him. How's that for unrestricted lawfare? Coming from our very same so-called grassroots conservatives here in Collin County. Now, one wonders what's in the water down in Plano that they would do this, but if only it was restricted to Plano. No, we have this stuff going on in McKinney as well, a little bit in Allen, just thrown in for good measure, and hey, don't even get us started on Frisco. When can we understand that when you're on the Republican Party, you're supposed to be on the same team? You want to see people be successful. You don't grab them by the ankle and jerk them backwards. Maybe that's a private conversation. Hey, you know what? You probably shouldn't have said it this way. Hey, you know what? I think maybe that was a violation. Perhaps you ought to consider it. Not doing that in the future. No. We're going to try and destroy. We're going to get him disqualified. We're going to embarrass the guy. We're going to make us all look bad. We're going to take our oatmeal and dump it over our head and protest because we don't want to eat it. What kind of childish antics are we dealing with here? And we just thought this unrestricted lawfare was only going on in D.C. or in Austin. No. It's in our hometown, our background. And I wish I could say it ends there. I wish I could say that this guy that is now the chairman-elect is the only one that has been subjected to this. But unfortunately, due to the circumstances I'm in, I can't say anything other than the fact that me too. Fantastical claims have been made and charged against me, and now I have to defend myself and spend time, money, and effort doing that. For what? Because somebody didn't get their way. Because somebody couldn't follow the rules, doesn't understand how things work, and is throwing a temper tantrum. Because somebody tried to bully somebody else, and it didn't work out the way they had thought. But this is what we're dealing with. Unrestricted lawfare. Rather than deal with things like an adult would, rather than be conciliatory, rather than think about the greater good, no. We're just going to try and destroy people. Sadly, this is, probably going to come to a head, at least in part, at our next executive committee meeting. Because one of these same people that just can't allow for anybody to have a different opinion or a different understanding, no, they're going to reimagine events and try and pressure people based on this might get them to shut up temporarily. I'm here to tell you, no sale. As we drift off into this weekend, and I've talked about this unrestricted lawfare, I would only encourage you to think about, is this really what we want? Is this really what's best? Is this really a net positive? Does this have a value add to our lives or our community? Now, the simple question, or I should say, the simple answer would be, it's not worth it. I'm walking away. Now, fortunately, Donald J. Trump hasn't done that. In fact, I've seen the meme 100 times if I've seen it once. They're not after me. They're after you, and I'm just in the way. There's a lot of truth in that. When I see what game has been played against our Attorney General, he could have very easily said, you know what, I've had enough. I'm going home. I'm going to go spend some time in McKinney with my wife. It's not worth it. But fortunately, he didn't do that. Fortunately, he continues to do the right thing and fight the good fight on behalf of Texas. I think about the chairman-elect and the nonsense that's been thrown at him and the garbage by the very same people that 2 years ago or a year ago were cheering his re-election to the city council. They were all his fans until suddenly they were not. How dare you? What kind of nonsense world are we living in? We didn't get our way, so we're going to destroy people. We didn't get our way, so we're going to just obstruct everything and not allow anybody to get anything done because, I'm over it. I'm done with it. But rather than walk away, I'm going to follow the example of my former president, my current AG, and my chairman-elect. Nope, I'm going to stand. I'm going to take the arrows. I'm going to take the fight. Metaphorically speaking, and I'm going to show up. I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to continue to stand for what I believe in and for what I think is best to protect the party, to protect others. The real sad thing is there are literally hundreds of thousands of people that are bent out of shape and angry about the lawfare waged against the former president. There are tens of thousands of people, if not hundreds of thousands of people, that are rightfully angry and upset about the lawfare waged against our current AG. I would like to think there are thousands of people bent out of shape and upset with the way that our chairman-elect is being targeted, attempted to be ruined by people that I guess at the end of the day must just be jealous. And sadly, I look at this and I think to myself, can I just find 10 people? Can I find 10 people that are willing to have my back? They're willing to call it out. They're willing to stand up. And I'm not even looking at it that they're protecting me. It's not about me. It's about our party. It's about the Republican Party of Collin County. I show up to executive meetings. I've been to all but maybe one of them in the last 2-3 years. And it's a mess each and every time. And you want to know why? It's because the vast majority of the people in there, one, don't really want to be there. And after what's been going on, I don't blame them. Two, this is entirely not what they expected. And they don't have the grit to do what needs to be done. Or three, perhaps they just don't care. And I don't know which is worse. But you see, I don't like bullies. I don't want you to bully me. I don't want you to bully other people. And when I stand up, I'm looking to protect other people. I could take it all day long. What is it? Captain America says I can do this all day long. Yeah, well, I kind of can. But when you're coming after the party, which is supposed to be looking at the greater good, when you're coming after people that are good people that I know and I respect, I'm not going to sit there and watch it go. I'm not going to allow it to be unchallenged. And for God's sakes, if you're going to try and use Robert's rules, at least do it the right way. At least if you're going to abuse Robert's rules to destroy meetings, you ought to at least get your stuff straight. You ought to have something useful to add to the conversation. But again, this is what we're dealing with. We went from unrestricted lawfare at the federal level to the state level to now here at the county level, and they're just using rules to abuse the people that care enough to show up once a month to find out what's going on because they want to have their way and they want to control things. And let me ask you, in what discernible way, after all of this, are they behaving any different than the leftist, progressive, socialist Democrats? They have become the very people they claim to revile. They behave in the same exact way and punish all of us because we don't get on board with whatever their latest agenda item is. So I'm asking you, I'm begging you, if you're going to be part of the Republican Party, if you're going to show up at the Collin County Republican Party meetings, please, just be willing to stand. I don't even care if you agree with me. I don't care if you think I'm right, but be willing to stand for what you believe in, what you think is right. Don't get bullied. Don't get pushed around. And guess what? If I happen to agree with you, I'm going to be right there with you. The only way we can get through this is to go through it. You can only hide from a storm so far as you run away from it. But it's still going to follow you. You can only get away from it for so long. Best to take it head on. Best to move on through it. Fight the lawfare by being courageous. Fight the unrestricted lawfare by not being fazed by it. Fight back against the unrestricted lawfare by just acknowledging that the people doing it are bad actors. Now, I want you to remember one thing here. It would have been very easy for me to come on here and throw everybody's name into this pot. It would have been very easy for me to come on here and, just disparage and run down all the people that I'm dealing with in these meetings. 1, that's not my style. 2, I think it's counterproductive. And 3, different people see things differently. And there's plenty of witnesses to what are playing on here. And I want them to go and search their soul. Check their memory banks. What is it exactly that they did see? Not what were they told happened, not where they think somebody else might have informed them occurred, but to actually think for themselves and determine where are they going to stand. More often than not, who's holding the line? Who's doing the right thing? Again, this is politics. You are free to think what you want to think. You are free to hold to the values that you have. I would never, well, I shouldn't say never. I am not likely to ever hold that against you. If you can give me a good argument for why you believe what you believe, if you can give me an example of why you think you're right, I will respect that all day long. But when you resort to name calling and deflecting of answers and quite frankly have nothing useful to add, just sit down. You're not doing anybody any favors. Let me just close with this. We see this stuff playing out, and a lot of people want to just blow it off. They want to ignore it. They want to write it off. They want to have nothing to do with it. They think it's just that stuff going on over there. But like I've told you many, many times, you may not care about politics, but politics cares about you. I would love nothing more than for each and every one of us to be able to go off in our own way, live our own life unmolested by either government or abusive people. But that's never going to happen. That's never been a possibility. It's never going to happen. You have to deal with the world we live in. You have to understand the reality of what it is. And if you're not going to fight when you're able to fight and have a good chance to win, when are you going to fight? And again, to be clear, fight is metaphorical. I don't have all the answers. I really wish I did. But we're never going to have any answers if nobody talks, if nobody takes action, if nobody stands up. So as you drift off to your weekend, spend time with your family, hug your spouse, spend time with your kids, pet your dog, say hi to your cat, whatever it is in your life. Take some time, enjoy it. Have the beverage of choice, watch a movie, read a book, whatever it is you do to relax. Like I said yesterday, take a breath, enjoy the break. Monday's coming, and we need to hit the ground running. And with that, this has been According to Callus. Thank you for sticking with me. And I will see you on the other side.